Here.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Mr. President.
Here. Please rise for the pledge and remarks by Councilmember Milton.
Everybody have a seat. Be real quick. It is October. It is National Domestic Violence Awareness Month. The former prosecutor in domestic violence here in Douglas County. I just want to let everyone know that we probably all know somebody that has experienced some type of domestic violence. So just remember, be patient, be there with them, and make sure you have them call the Women's Center for Advancement. We have somebody there 24/7. In fact, we just had some grant money that we passed last week that went to help the Women's Center for Advancement. We had one of our domestic violence prosecutors down here speaking to us. So just let everyone know, if you know someone, let them know there are people that care. Let them know you care. And let's try and stop violence against intimate partners here in our city. Second thing, 1 week from today, everybody knows, I think at this point, 1 week from today is Election Day. Everybody needs to go out and exercise their right to vote. Do your research, go online. Voter Information Project is one place you can go that's nonpartisan, and you can go and look up information. You can go to the Nebraska Bar Association, has rankings. If you don't know anything about judges that are on there, you can actually go there. That's some of the questions we get. So just do your research, but whatever you do, just make sure you either get to the Election Commission right there at 120th and Center, kind of next to the old Nobbies. You can go there in person. You can even go there on Saturday, or you can find your polling place and just make sure you exercise that right that God gave you and that this country was founded on. So exercise that right to vote a week from today or any time before a week from today. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Clerk.
An affidavit of publication is on file for the pre-council and city council meeting, and a current copy of the Open Meeting Act is posted in a white binder on the east wall of legislative chambers.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the Omaha City Council. We appreciate having you here today. We look forward to hearing your testimony on our many items. I would encourage you to turn your cell phones off or at least to vibrate. If you have any difficulty hearing the proceedings today, you can speak with our Building Commission representative here for a listening device, or we do have closed captioning in the back of the room as well.
Item 6, to consider a Class C liquor license for Wine by Design located at 731 North 98th Street.
The public hearing and vote on number 6 is today. We'll take proponents. I think we also have the applicant by Zoom, right?
We do on item number 10. I don't see that we have one
yes,
on
go ahead.
Item number 6. Good afternoon, Mr. President, members of the council. David Houghton appearing on behalf of the applicant for a Class C liquor license for Julie Hockney Designer, Inc., doing business as Wine by Design, located at 731 North 98th Street. The concept here is the proprietor has a interior design business and would like to be able to sell wine and other alcoholic beverages to prospective clients, and therefore has asked for a Class C liquor license for the footprint of that business as well. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to address them. The normal business hours should be commensurate with the business hours of the location next door, so late morning to early evening.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other proponents that want to speak? Any opponents? Public hearing's closed. Council members, this is in my district, not be supportive of this application.
Move the approval.
Motion a second to approve. Roll call.
Hug. Yes. Johnson. Yes. Milton.
Yes.
Rowe. Yes. Bagley. Aye. Harding. Yes. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0. Item 7, to consider a Class C liquor license for the Salty Dog Bar and Grill located at 3401 South 72nd Street.
Public hearing and vote on number 7 is today. Proponents, please.
Good afternoon, Council. Thank you for hearing our application today. My name is Barb Perhall from Smith Pauley, here as a proponent for the Salty Hospitality, doing business as Salty Dog Bar and Grill. They're looking to open a bar and restaurant basically at 3401 South 72nd Street. With me are Brian and Jamie Cadwallader. They own the Salty Dog in Council Bluffs. They're just looking to expand their brand and their business to a restaurant in Omaha. Business hours will be 11 a.m. to 2 a.m. Possibly weekends as they get going to open a little bit earlier for brunch, but just basically a restaurant in Omaha trying to expand some business.
Thank you. And your address, just for the record?
Mine is 3555 Barnum Street, Suite 1000, Omaha 68131.
Thank you. Are there any other proponents that want to speak today? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing's closed. Mr. Bagley, you're recognized.
Thanks, Mr. President. Hey, good afternoon. Don't leave. Don't leave. Is Barb, right?
Barb, yes.
Thanks for coming down today. You kind of answered the question. I had a couple questions on, you own restaurants in Ashland and Council Bluffs right now?
The Cadwalladers, yes.
Not in Ashland any longer. We used to
Okay.
run Mahoney State Park, the food and beverage for the state of Nebraska. That contract ended in 2020.
Okay, can you give your name for the record for us?
It's Brian Cadwallader.
Brian, thanks. And what kind of food are you going to serve here at the Salty Dog?
It's bar fare. We serve burgers, chicken wings, appetizers and such.
Okay, and we have a patio area out there?
We do have a patio
All
area.
right, I'm setting it up for you pretty good here. So when do you expect to open?
As soon as we're finished.
All right, all right. Well, thanks for coming down. I'll look forward to Festerson taking me for lunch out there during one of our council days. All right, so you're open, you said 11 in the morning to 2 a.m.?
Correct.
Okay. Well, thanks for coming down. I'll look forward to getting out there and having some wings and a burger, and maybe a cold one. And wish you the best of luck, and thanks for opening up here in Omaha. I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you. We look forward to it.
Thanks.
There's a motion and a second to approve. Mr. Hug.
Although I was excited to see your restaurant open, I'll be totally frank with you, I was more excited to see the business opening on the south side of your building.
Oh, Macadoodles?
No, Wiener Schnitzel.
Oh, yeah. They're going to be a great neighbor. We're looking forward to them. Their number one selling item is ice cream, and we don't really have a big dessert menu, so it'll be a nice relationship, we hope.
So it's, yeah, you're just on the other side of my district, but always great to see a well-known, established brand coming to Danny's district.
We're excited.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No further lights. Roll call.
Hug. Johnson. Melton. Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Item 8, to consider a Class C liquor license for Artisan Boards of Omaha, located at 16920 Wright Plaza, Suite 116.
Public hearing and vote on number 8 is today. We do have this applicant by Zoom. Ms. Albers will get you off mute here in a minute. Okay, let's see. Okay, try that.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I am not tech savvy, as my kids tell me, so I apologize. My name is Sandy Albers, and I own Artisan Boards of Omaha. We will be at Shops of Legacy at 16920 Wright Plaza, Suite 116. I have been in business for 5 years, having my commercial license in Sarpy County, and will be opening up my first brick and mortar. We serve meat and cheese boards, as well as any other type of charcuterie board you can think of, from candy to dessert to crudité to everything in between. We will be open from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Tuesday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. on Saturdays, closed Sundays and Mondays. We're just going to be offering wine with charcuterie boards. The bottles, we're not too interested quite yet in having a sit-down restaurant where they can sit and order a glass, but it will be when they pick up their charcuterie board, they can take a bottle of wine.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other proponents that want to speak today? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing's closed. There's a motion to approve in a second. Roll call.
Hug. Johnson. Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0.
Good luck.
Item 9, to consider a Class C liquor license for Finnegan's Pub and Grill located at 4309 South 120th Street.
Public hearing and vote on number 9 is today. We also have this applicant by Zoom. Ms. Connor, we'll get you off mute here. All right, try that.
Hi, Nikki Connor, 19032 R Street, Omaha, Nebraska, 68135. Here on behalf of the applicant, Shamrock Lounge LLC. They purchased Finnegan's and will continue doing business as such. Here for any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you. Any other proponents that want to speak today? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed. There's a motion and a second to approve. Roll call.
Hug. Johnson. Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 10, to consider a Class C liquor license for 21 Hall located at 4830 South 21st Street.
Public hearing and vote on number 10 is today. Proponents, please.
Afternoon, Mr. President, members of the council, David Houghton, here on behalf of the applicant, 21 Hall LLC, doing business as 21 Hall, located at 4830 South 21st Street. My address is 2804 South 87th Street, Omaha, Nebraska. The applicant here is looking for a Class C liquor license. The purpose of the business will be to do parties and special events. I would like to disclose to the council that there is a child daycare center planned for the same building, although in a different area of the building. If the council has any questions about that or questions about the business, I have a client, my client Natalie is in attendance today, and me or her would be happy to address any concerns or questions you may have.
Okay, thank you. Any other proponents that want to speak today? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Mr. Hug.
Good afternoon. Dave, we briefly communicated previously, and my concern is what was shared with me from my constituents. I don't know, however, it got out in the public that the plan was for the lower level of this building to be a 24-hour daycare. And I would have some concerns if there was going to be a liquor license permitted above a 24-hour daycare, but now I believe since we've talked, it's been indicated that that's not the plan for a 24-hour daycare. Is that correct?
That's correct. My understanding, at least through our client, is that the hours of operation of the daycare are intended to be 5 a.m. to 6 p.m. As I said, my client may have more specific information about that. It may extend out if there's late pickup or something like that, but those are the intended hours so far as I understand it.
And it's the intent of your client not to allow any events when the daycare is in operation?
That's correct.
Okay, is that reflective in the license anywhere?
I don't think that we stipulated to that in our application, no.
Okay, you said your client's here?
By Zoom.
Oh, okay. Could we ask her to possibly comment?
I would have no issue with that.
Hi, my name's Natalie. We have two business locations, one located on 4711 Giles Road, and our other one is 2402 N Street. Our current business hours are 5 to 6 p.m., so we would keep the same business hours, and we would only operate Saturday and Sunday for special events. It will not be in between the week.
Okay, and so you would operate the daycare as well?
It would only be Monday through Friday. I would not operate the daycare. It would be my mom. I'm
Okay.
only leasing for the top part.
Will the daycare at this 21st Street address, will it be a 24-hour daycare,
No, it will not. We will only operate from 5 a.m. to 6 p.m.
Monday through Friday?
Correct. We have our 2402 N Street that will operate on Saturdays only.
Okay. Normally I'd push for a stipulation in the liquor license, but you've got a great reputation, Dave, so I'll just accept you at your word that this will not be a 24-hour daycare. And I'll let it go at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman.
Thank you. Is that a motion?
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to approve. Roll call.
Hug. Johnson. Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0.
Thank you.
Item 11, to consider a Class C liquor license for Uptown Java located at 2627 North 205th Street.
Public hearing and vote on number 11 is today. Proponents, please.
Dennis Coley, I'm an attorney in downtown Elkhorn, affectionately known as Old Town. The street address is 2710 North Main Street. And my client has a place of business 1 block to the east. We're just off of 204th Street. And we are here on behalf of these fine people, Pastor Brad Hafes and his wonderful wife, who's here with us also. The primary goal or intent of this business location is to serve food products, and may I say, some of the best I've ever consumed, unfortunately too many sometimes. There were 4 generations of cooks. The oldest just passed away this year. But we have the 3 remaining generations cooking some of the best, if I may say, cinnamon pecan rolls you'd ever consume. And also some other breakfast cuisine. They have quiche and soup. Their primary goal is to serve food products and the best, I think, coffee. Uptown Java is the name that I think you'll find is at least competitive with everybody else here in the wonderful city of Omaha. Pastor, if I may say, wants the earnings of this to go to a society that he founded called Fresh Hope for those that suffer from depression. If I may say, his society is now in 20 countries. He started in downtown Elkhorn. And he said, we've got counseling for those that suffer from drug addiction, alcohol addiction. What can we do for people that suffer from depression? And he said, we'll have a counseling group called Fresh Hope, but God will be in the center of those meetings. It just took off like a rocket ship. So this is his first business venture, but I think you'll find him to be one who's dedicated to what he's doing. I think the wine and the beer will be just something that's available. There will be no bar. But if you've got the folks coming in for lunch and they've dined and they want to have, some wine to go with the meal or a beer, then that will be available. And he did have a temporary license for the grand opening, which was very well attended. So thank you for the opportunity to appear before you. And my client is here present if there's any other questions. But we appreciate the privilege for coming before this wonderful group.
Great, thank you. Any other proponents that want to speak? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing's closed. Mr. Harding, you're recognized.
Denny, thanks for, you actually answered all the questions I was going to ask, and I didn't know that Pastor Hafes was going to be here today too, but I think that it's a unique concept with the proceeds going for mental health, and I think that's very admirable, and downtown or Old Town Elkhorn is really taking off, and with anchors like you and your business and the Hafes now taking over, kind of a famous spot for coffee. Just a great addition to the area. And go ahead. Yeah.
If you remember COPE, Christian Outreach Program of Elkhorn, it was in the basement of his church, Community of Grace. I used to be there to help stock the shelves, and when you see these kids roll up on Saturday mornings with their noses pressed against the glass, just waiting to get in and get some food, it was just, it was an emotional thing. But, his church housed that group, and God bless them for it. They're just around the corner from my office now.
Yeah.
They do well. So I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, you say it better than I could.
Last time Brinker was downtown, I accused him of violating the dress code, overdressed. He took it well.
It's a welcoming community.
Yes,
Thanks,
thank
Danny. Move for approval.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to approve. Roll call.
Hug. Johnson. Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion
For the
passed
record, thank you all for your public service. We really appreciate the time that you devote to this wonderful community that we love so much. God bless you all.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here. Yep.
Item 12, to consider a Class CKG liquor license for Omaha Sports Academy located at 21015 Cumberland Drive.
Public hearing and vote on number 12 is today. We have the applicant by Zoom, I believe. All right, try that.
Good afternoon, council members. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
All right. My name's John Wesley Wilson. I'm here on behalf of West Point Brewing Company, LLC, doing business as Omaha Sports Academy. They've purchased that business. It's located at 21015 Cumberland Drive. It's a operation at the Union Bank and Trust Sports Complex, and they're hoping to upgrade the license to allow them to basically distribute growlers for off-premise consumption as well, in addition to a few taps, some non-alcoholic beverages, and some domestic cans for events.
Great, thank you. Are there any other proponents that want to speak? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing's closed.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to approve. Roll call.
Hug. Johnson. Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0.
Thank you.
Item 13, to consider a liquor license addition application for a brewery located at 721 North 132nd Street to add an indoor area and to change the trade name to Linden House.
Public hearing and vote on number 13 is today. Proponents, please.
Yes, thank you, Council. We're here on behalf of the Brewery Restaurant, which would like to change the name to the Linden House. And then we have a party room that was once attached to the restaurant that was closed off years ago that we'd like to reattach to the restaurant. So that's basically what we're here for, too.
Thank you. Need your name and address for the record, please?
My name, Maureen Malitti. My home address, 7422 North 118th Circle, Omaha, Nebraska, 68142.
Thank you. Any other proponents that want to speak today? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing's closed.
Move the approval.
Thank you.
There's a motion to approve in a second, and it was nice to see you with the Omaha Hospitality Awards. That's
It was
always a great
wonderful.
event.
It was a great event.
And you'll have Jenny working for you, right?
Yeah.
All
Hopefully
right.
she'll get in there next year.
That'll be a great addition.
Yeah.
All right. There's a motion and a second to approve. Roll call.
Hug. Johnson. Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0. Items 14 and 15 can be considered together for Four Seasons Linden Estates Replat 2, located southeast of 143rd Court and Cummings Street. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval. Item 14, a resolution to approve the final plat. Item 15, a resolution to approve the subdivision agreement.
Public hearing and vote on items 14 and 15 are today. Proponents, please.
Jeff Anderson with McNeil Company Builders, 4666 South 132nd.
Just here to answer questions?
Just here to answer questions.
All right, thank you. Any other proponents today? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing's closed.
Move the approval.
There's a motion and a second to approve. Roll call.
Hug. Johnson. Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0. Item 16, an ordinance to rezone property located northeast of Glen Street and Elkhorn Drive from DR District and R5 District to R4 District. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval.
Public hearing and vote on number 16 is today. Proponents, please. Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing's closed. There's a motion, a second to approve. Roll call.
Hug. Johnson. Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0. Item 17, an ordinance to rezone property located at 5050 South 51st Street from DR District to R3 District. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval.
Public hearing and vote on number 17 is today. Proponents, please.
Good afternoon, Lenora Nelson. I serve as Executive Director of Facilities for Omaha Public Schools at the Service Center 4041 North 72nd Street. I'm just here today to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. Any other proponents today? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Move the approval. Or second.
Motion approved.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve. Roll call.
Hug. Johnson. Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0. Item 18, an ordinance to rezone property located at 7410 Mercy Road from R7 District to GO District. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval.
Public hearing and vote on number 18 is today. Proponents, please. Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Motion and a second to approve. Roll call.
Hug. Johnson. Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0. Item 19, an ordinance to approve an amendment to the future land use element of the city's master plan from civic and low-density residential to low-density residential for the property located at 4209 and 4215 Ellison Avenue. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval.
Public hearing and vote on number 19 is today. Proponents, please.
I'm the developer, Philip McLean, here to answer any questions.
Okay. And your address, please.
4906 Davenport Street.
Thank you. Any other proponents that want to speak today? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Ms. Johnson, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Phil, I just wanted to recognize your contribution to this community. Very much needed. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
Is that a motion?
No, my colleagues will vote for me in my district because that's what they do regularly, unlike what they do for other district.
Maybe you should
other,
actually do the motion for your own district.
Unlike other council members have the respect of being able to motion for their district, I unfortunately don't have that privilege. Thank you.
Is there a motion on number 19? I would make the motion, but I cannot. I'll second. Motion a second to approve. Roll call.
Hug. Johnson. Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good luck.
Welcome.
Consent agenda. Any member of the city council may cause any item placed on the consent agenda to be removed. Items removed from the consent agenda shall be taken up by the city council immediately following the consent agenda in the order in which they were removed, unless otherwise provided by the city council rules of order.
The public hearings on agenda items 20 through 30 were held on October 22nd. I don't see any further lights. Is there a motion?
Second.
Motion a second to approve. Roll call.
Hug. Johnson. Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0.
There's been a request to remove item number 43 from the consent agenda. So first we'll take items number 31 through 42. The public hearings on agenda items 31 through 42 are today. If you wish to address the city council regarding these items, please come to the microphone, indicate the agenda item number you wish to address, identify yourself by name, address, and who you represent, and if you are a proponent or an opponent. These are items 31 through 42, and we do have a couple of applicants by Zoom if needed. I don't see anything. Public hearings are closed.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to approve items 31 through 42. Roll call.
Hug. Johnson. Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 6-1. Item 43, a resolution to approve the placement of 3 additional bus shelters at 30th and Bondison Streets, 30th and Hanover Streets, and 30th Street and Curtis Avenue as an amendment to the original lease agreement with Metro.
The public hearing on item number 43 is today. Proponents, please.
Hello, Evan Schweitz with Metro Transit, 2222 Cummings Street, here to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any other proponents today? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Ms. Johnson, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. During our pre-council meeting this morning, your colleague was present. As you are well aware of, District 2, North 24th Street has been engaged with your organization in the acknowledgement of the fact that that area does not have any benches or any shelter for those that are riding your buses. I find it very odd that today we are here voting on an item whereby we're going ahead and implementing 3 structures while they're needed, and that's great. They're needed in other places as well. I don't have a solid answer as to why we are still going without shelters on 24th Street.
Sure. So I can answer the question regarding the 3 being brought before you today. They were originally proposed to us by a community group, the North Omaha Commercial Club. And so we've been working with those folks to identify sites. And so the neighborhood actually recommended these 3. One is at Miller Park, one is at Florence Library, and the third is near the Dollar Tree on 30th and Hanover. So the sites were recommended, and actually they went out and got grant funds to pay for them. So we're just here representing the ground permit for those shelters to be installed. So that's not to say that more shelters couldn't be installed in the future. These are not funded by Metro, so our process follows through typically a federal grant, which has a longer timeline, which we do have shelters in the pipeline through a federal process, but those will be brought to you probably 2025.
Okay, I appreciate you giving me that information now. However, for the past 2 years, I've been having conversations with your organization and have gotten nowhere with a answer as to how long or when we would have those issues on 24th Street addressed. And unfortunately, today I still don't have a timetable as to when that issue is going to be addressed. I take away from this discussion today that if I am a nonprofit organization and I make a motion or entertain a request to get bus shelters, then I would most likely get that. Whereas as a city council representative making that request, I wouldn't be able to get that. And that's somewhat troubling for me. So unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to support this.
Okay. Yeah, again, to clarify, the reason that these were able to be expedited is because they brought funding to the table. So we're always open to conversations about additional funds. And as you know, we are in the process of studying 24th Street for actually much greater upgrades than just bus shelters. We're hoping ultimately that would lead to a future orbit line. And of course, those timelines are much longer, multi-million dollars in federal investment. And so it is a process that we do our diligence, and it takes multiple years. So unfortunately, we can't get any quick results, though you and I both would like to see upgrades as soon as possible.
So unfortunately, the community on 24th Street has to wait without any shelter for a bus ride, and then the expectation would be that they would utilize those bus services, correct?
Yep.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Mr. Harding, you're recognized.
Move to approve.
Second. There's a motion and a second to approve. I might just engage a little further too, along 30th Street here. This, what we have before us today is just a lease with the city for those properties, right, to do the shelters. And I appreciate you partnering with the North Omaha Commercial Club to help make this a reality. About how much is a bus shelter?
So it depends on the amenities installed. We generally say about $20,000, which is inclusive of the groundwork to put in, footings and that sort. So.
Okay. Yep. So the grant funds they must have accessed must be in the neighborhood of, $70,000, $80,000, maybe more?
Yeah, I couldn't speak to specifics. I know the grant includes landscaping and other amenities as well. So I don't know the full extent of it, but
okay.
It was enough to purchase 3 shelters.
And then Metro agrees to maintain it in perpetuity? Yep. Great. Thank you. Mr. Hug, you're recognized.
All right, just to be clear, you're talking 3 shelters on North 30th Street?
Yep.
Okay, Bonderson Street, Hanover Street, and Curtis Avenue.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm trying to visualize, but those are about what, 2 or 3 miles apart?
Yeah, I don't have specific measurements, but they're spaced out. There's several stops in between those. But
So there are additional stops between the shelters?
Yes.
Okay. You know, I'm kind of jealous. It's obviously something I'd like to see in my district on L Street. But I'll vote to support this today because whatever's good for North Omaha is good for all of Omaha. So thank you.
Thank you.
And consistent with Ms. Melton's opening remarks, there are some important elections next week regarding Metro as it converts to an elected body for the first time. So we encourage people to participate in the election for that reason too, but then also look forward to working with whoever those folks are on your strategic plan going forward.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. There's a motion and a second to approve. Roll call.
Hug.
Yes.
Johnson. Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 6-1.
Thanks.
Item 44, an ordinance to amend Chapter 10, Division 5 of the Omaha Municipal Code entitled Small and Emerging Small Business Program to increase the minimum net worth of individual owners to coincide with the changes from the Department of Transportation. A is amendment of the whole requested by the Law Department.
The vote on number 44 is today. I'll note there is an amendment of the whole. Is there a motion? The amendment of the whole? Motion and a second. Roll call.
Hug. Johnson. Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 6-1. Item 45, an ordinance to amend ordinance number 42895 to correct the end of the agreement for the transportation of sludge cake biosolids for the Missouri River Water Resource Recovery Facility project.
Public hearing on number 45 is today. Proponents, please. Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Item 46, an ordinance to authorize a purchase order to Medi Waste Disposal LLC for medical waste disposal to be utilized by Under the Sink.
Public hearing on number 46 is today. Proponents, please. Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Item 47, an ordinance vacating a portion of Craig Avenue as legally described on the agenda. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval.
Public hearing on number 47 is today. Proponents, please. Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Item 48, an ordinance levying a special tax assessment for condemned buildings or structures, group number 2024-01.
Public hearing on number 48 is today. Proponents, please. Seeing none, any opponents?
Larry Store, 5015 Lafayette Avenue, Omaha, 68132. I'm not sure I quite understand that one. There was an abandoned building at the top of Lafayette, about 46th Street, abandoned for a long, long time. Obviously, the homeless people busting into it. Everybody dumping their trash on the lot, and it set and set and set and set. But if nobody owns that building, who are you going to spatially assign taxes to? The people that live in that district? I don't think that's fair. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other opponents to number 48? Seeing none, public hearing is closed.
Item 49, an ordinance to approve a major amendment to mixed-use district development agreement for West Dodge Point to allow automotive sales. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval.
Public hearing on number 49 is today. Proponents, please.
Yes, excuse me. Yes, Mr. President, members of the council, Larry Jovan, 11440 West Center Road, appearing on behalf of the proposed car dealership. With me today is Paul Check of Woodhouse Auto Family. Also with me today is Caleb Van Wielden of Lampreniers and the consulting engineers on this particular project. This major amendment to the mixed-use development agreement will allow for 2 car dealerships on this particular lot, one being a Genesis dealership and the other being a Cadillac dealership. So we're here simply to answer any questions. The location is 173rd and Bird Street, which is just immediately north of Dodge in the West Dodge Point development. So with that, we're happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any other proponents today? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing's closed.
Item 50, an ordinance to approve a major amendment to mixed-use district development agreement for Antler View East to add outdoor sports and recreation and surface parking as permitted uses. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval.
Public hearing on number 50 is today. Proponents, please. Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing's closed.
Item 51, an ordinance to amend Section 44-151 of the Omaha Municipal Code to adopt the 2023 National Electrical Code.
Public hearing on number 51 is today. Proponents, please.
Anna Vespoyasny with the Planning Department, here to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any other proponents?
John Nebel on behalf of IBW, 8946 L Street, 68127. Just wanted to speak a little bit on what it is that's happening with this code update. Obviously, we're operating under the 2017 code now. There was a 2020 version that never passed the state legislature, and we moved on to the 2023 version. There are a couple carve-outs that the state did when they passed the 2023 version, and we would like to not see those carved out here in Omaha. Reasons being they are for life safety issues. There's, I'll start kind of with the last one. There's 5 of them in total. The last one is for emergency disconnects on the outside of the building. This is the reason that was being done was there were firefighters waiting or put in danger when they're going to put out a fire when a house is on fire. If you cut the power to the building, it becomes a safer place. Sometimes meter sockets get pulled. That could cause an arc flash problem. Instead, the new code would require a disconnect on the outside, make it a safer operation for the firefighters to disconnect power. Second one was surge protectors. That one, not all the way life safety as much as it is equipment safety, but as we know, the electrical grid is overwhelmed to a point that the equipment that we have in our houses at this point cannot withstand sometimes the power surges. We have to wear protective suits to protect ourselves from the arc flash of that. So a whole house surge protector is that article that would be 230.67. Something I think OPBD already offers, but it would now just be a minimum requirement if you're building a new house. The largest part of the carve out would be the sections 210.8 and that whole amendments and exceptions throughout that. What those are GFCI protections. If you don't know what a GFCI is, it's kind of a smart circuit breaker. Right now in your house, you have a circuit breaker that sends power out to whatever device, if it's your vacuum or whatever, and then unused power comes back on the other line. There's a couple different lines. One goes out, 2 that come back. The breaker now just recognizes that there's power going out. If there's more power going out than the wire can handle, it'll trip that breaker. With the GFCIs, it'll read the power coming back. And so why that's a life safety thing is that if a person was to get caught up in the electrical circuit, or if the electricity was then to go to ground instead of coming back, the breaker would recognize that trip, and so they're therefore removing any chance of electrocution. So we've had those. A lot of you probably know them in your bathrooms and in your kitchen countertops. This code would require it to be on the 240 volt receptacles. So things like dryers, ranges, the big power in the house, and then a couple instances in the basements were also GFCIs were not required, now would be required if we were to eliminate these carve-outs. Quick backstory on the adoption. These all were changes made in the 2020 code. We did not get that done. I think the opponents at that time were concerned about the cost of implementing this. The builders mostly didn't want to increase the price of houses, so we kind of punted in 2021 due to supply chain issues. At that time, they talked about having them, the cost being around $2,000. In 2023, we re-estimated what those costs would be, and they were $700 to to build a new house. It would be an increased cost of $700. I know that Grand Island has passed this in 2021. They passed the 2020 version. In 2023, an inspector from Grand Island testified to the fact that, yes, it was an increase to costs on these materials, but the electricians are still finding ways to decrease those costs. Now that you have a disconnect on the outside of the building, it allows you to move the panel further inside of the house, which eliminates some of the wiring length to go from the panel to all the devices. So they're finding ways to keep the costs low, but once again, this is life safety that was compromised with these carve-outs, so we would offer, please don't carve out those 5 sections and just pass the code as 2023 in whole.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
So proponent, you're just advocating for not having those 5 carve-outs?
Correct.
Yes, gotcha. We'll come back and probably have some more questions for you.
Okay.
All right. Any other proponents that want to speak? Seeing none, any opponents?
Larry Storr, 5015 Lafayette Avenue, Omaha 68132. I'm not totally opposed to it, but I think it needs a little more clarification from the standpoint of older people, retired people, those in the end stage that have lived in their house for 40 or 50 years, haven't had the money to update like the neighbors next door did, or the house that was turned over and updated. How does this affect those people when they go to sell that property? Are the inspectors going to come in and see that it is 40 years out of date and say before you can sell that house, you have to fix it up? Or will that be responsibility of the new owner on, I guess they have to be inspected. And inspectors find something, somebody has to fix it, as I understand it. Who would that be? Thank you.
Thank you. Any other opponents to number 51? Seeing none, public hearings closed. Mr. Begley, you're recognized.
Thanks, Mr. President. I guess I got a couple questions for planning, Mr. Fanslaw, or somebody from your team. Oh, there's Anna. Hi, Anna.
Hi.
Good afternoon. I guess let me start with this simple question. Mr. Nebel mentioned there's 5 carve-outs from the state statute, I guess. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. If this body wanted to put those back in, would we have the ability to do it to supersede what the state has in the law?
Anna Bestway, Asney Planning Department. What we've proposed as part of our ordinance today is exactly what the state has adopted. And the state, as I understand it, in February, I think it was January or February of 2023, had a public hearing with regards to going from the 2017 up to the 2023 electrical code. That particular year it didn't pass, and then they had some other changes that they were making to the state electrical board with regards to, I think, licensing, and they're part of an agreement amongst several states for reciprocity for electrical licenses. And so what they did with the code update is that they amended those things and basically rolled those into the electrical board bill that they proposed down at the state. And so I don't believe there was a public hearing on that version after it was basically worked on with the home builders who are in opposition to going with the NEC without any amendments, and the electrical board. So what we've proposed basically is the same thing that the state has adopted right now, and it was signed into law by Governor Pillen in March. It became effective on August 1st of this year, 2024, and so we are bound to enforce this because it is presently the law. Now, that being said, Omaha, this council has the ability to make whatever changes you want to make, if you want to make it more restrictive, you have that ability. I think some of the opposition that the home builders voiced was with regards to some of the costs that they would encounter with new housing. Specifically, they were talking, bringing up affordable housing and, not making it any more restrictive in those regards.
Okay, so if I'm hearing you correctly, what the governor signed, if we choose to go beyond what their minimum standards were, I guess if that's a correct phrase, their minimum.
Correct.
We have the ability as this body to bring back the things for discussion that were mentioned in the previous testimony here?
Certainly, yeah.
Okay.
That's your prerogative.
Okay, thanks, I appreciate that, because I had some confusion on that. Thanks, Anna.
Yep, you're welcome.
John, a couple follow-up questions for you. First, you're from IBW Local 22, so you want to just talk a little bit about your training center that's, I'm not going to speak for you guys, but I've toured it, and it's centered on safety of the electricians that are doing the work, but also the homes that you're building and working on and buildings, et cetera. You want to speak a little bit to that?
Sure, yeah. So safety is our goal. When we started the IBW, there was our lifespan of electrician was about 3 years. Now you can go a whole career with it and be pretty safe. What we do is we try to adopt our training methods based on the most current version of the National Electrical Code. So we are training our folks to be up to date on the 2023 code, the 2020 code. When it came out, we were still training to that. We do continuing education hours, 12 hours in Nebraska every 2 years. To that effect, we were training all of our folks on adopting and implementing this version of the code. Of course, we already understand what we're working on now is the 2017, but yeah, our training is specifically designed to make sure that we're ready to implement the new code when it's adopted.
Okay, and you had mentioned that, I believe it was 2021, Grand Island. Talk about what Grand Island did.
So they passed the 2020 code, which is all the 5 carve-outs. They were new in 2020. They passed that in 2021 and have been operating as such. I'm sure they have the same guidance in there. If the state adopts a new minimum, that they would adopt that minimum. So I don't know for sure if they've adopted the 2023 to date, but I'm sure it's coming.
Okay. And I got a few more questions. So you had mentioned an electrical or a house fire. So fire department comes out, and I spoke to some firefighters about this, and correct me if I'm wrong. So when there's a house fire, I think the firefighters, my understanding, one of them walks around to see if there's a shut off on the outside, because for the safety of the firefighters when they're battling a fire, saving lives, protecting property. Mm-hmm. If this code was implemented for the emergency disconnect, the Omaha Public Power District, when there's a fire, would send a troubleshooter to cut the power either at the transformer on the overhead that feeds the house or the building where the structure fire is, correct?
Correct, yeah. And minutes matter, I think, in a fire. So if they have the ability and they know that a new house has that disconnect on it, they're just going to open up that cabinet and create that disconnect means there instead of waiting for OPB to come and handle it.
And obviously, and also speaking of firefighters, when they're doing their bravery to protect property and lives, if it takes a while for an OPBD troubleshooter to get there, they're in there, and if they're trying to fight the fire and do the things they do, there's a safety hazard not only from a fire, but also if there's energized power lines in the ceilings and they're trying to knock out a ceiling to put a fire out, that's also a safety issue, I'm assuming, for the firefighters, fair to say.
Yeah, I've never fought a fire, but I wouldn't want to be fighting a fire and spraying water on electricity. I know they don't mix very well.
Okay, and it gets back into that emergency disconnect. If that was one of the carve-outs in the state statute, that if that was in city ordinance, then that would be on a new home. If it costs $100,000 to build that home or $1 million, what is the cost extra to that house?
The equipment, our quotes have been $700. We are, so when we're building a house, we already have to put a meter socket in, we already have to put a panel in. It would just be a different type of meter socket that would be installed. So the labor wouldn't really be as much of a difference as much as the upgraded equipment would be. And to speak to Larry's point, you wouldn't have to upgrade any of this unless you were to change the wiring. So it would be the new minimum if you were to change the wiring or install and build a new structure. It wouldn't be something that you would have to worry about if you were just to leave it as is and sell your property.
Okay, and the last question I got for now is, so you talk about those GFIs, that's not only at the meter, but also you were talking about like a range or a washer and dryer. Talk about the brief safety on those.
Sure. So everything in our industry, if you look at a code that's been updated, especially a change like this, most likely came because somebody was injured or a loss of life. Around the same time that the 2017 code was being implemented, there were news stories coming out. There was a few children that did lose their lives because they contacted wiring around a stove, an air conditioner, and I think a dryer as well. They got caught in between the lines there. If the GFIs were installed in those pieces of equipment, that should have interrupted that circuit and protected those children. So that's kind of the thought concept of, hey, we have the ability to do this on bigger power things. We've been doing it for a couple decades on kitchen appliances. Anything that's close to water usually gets a GFCI type circuit installed. So this was kind of the next step of, we have the ability to do this. Let's just implement it as a new minimum going forward to start protecting lives.
Okay, thanks, John.
Mhm.
Anna, one more quick question, please.
Anna
Thanks.
Vescoyasny, Planning.
A lot of moving parts, but I
It's okay.
appreciate your expertise. And just so I'm clear, the state's statute is basically the minimum what they require. And if we wanted to go beyond that, we have the ability to add on to what the minimum that the state has with this body, we can add on to it.
Yeah, the state has adopted the 2023, and because that became effective in August of this year, that is what we have been enforcing in Omaha prior to any adoption of the 2023, because we are mandated by the state to enforce what they've adopted at the state level. So John's I got John, I didn't get the last name, sorry. To John's point, we're not enforcing the 2017 anymore outside of these particular amendments that were basically residential provisions that rolled back to the 2017. And that was all coordinated at the state level. I can't presume that they would purposely adopt something that would be unsafe. So, you know, as we like to say in the code world, it's a minimum standard. And so I believe that's what the state is looking to enforce, and that's what we're looking to also enforce.
Okay, thanks, Anna.
Yep.
Thanks, Mr. President. The last thing I'll say is that you mentioned, John, you don't have to get up, but life safety issues. I know, understanding the IBW well, safety is preached. That is the gospel of the IBW since 1891 when Henry Miller formed the IBW. And I don't think it's any different than what's at least was discussed in my understanding what was passed in Lincoln, but also what you kind of educating us on here today. So I don't have any questions for now. I may in a little bit. There's other lights on. Thanks, Mr. President.
Thank you. I wanted to follow up on one question he was just asking to, which is, I think it's important that we proceed from 2017 to 2023 to update our code. I think everybody agrees upon that. Maybe with a question to Mr. Kuzy. So to take Mr. Begley's question one step further, we could still be consistent with state law in that respect by passing this next week, but taking out the 5 exclusions, that still meets that minimum standard and would still be consistent with state law. Is that what we're concluding today?
Mac-Husey Law Department. Anna's correct. Ms. Bozipoyazny is correct. You know, the law department when we drafted this ordinance for planning, we just simply copied what the state had did. But to Anna's point, the state sets kind of the minimum, the ground floor, that you must at least do this. The city is able to have a more restrictive code than what the state has adopted. So if the council wishes, on line 12, at the end, beginning with the words, except that the minimum standards set forth in the 2017 edition of the National Electrical Code shall apply for sections 210, 8A, 210 point, and so forth, those can be removed, those exceptions can be removed, thereby making our code more restrictive than what the state has adopted. The council is able to adopt such a code, removing the exceptions that the state added in during the legislative process. So what Ms. Vespoyazny is saying is 100% accurate, and the council does have the power to remove that language. Again, it would be the language contained at the end of line 12 through kind of the middle of line 14 of the ordinance.
Okay, thank you. And then regardless of what we do next week, none of these changes impact the rest of this article. I think it's Article 5 in City Code that pertains to our electrical code. That's accurate to say, right? It all remains intact, the rest of this code?
Mancusi Law Department, it does remain intact. You would just be removing the exceptions that the state put in kind of at the last minute, that the state put in. I mean, so removing those doesn't affect any other part of the code. And if I'm mistaken, Ms. Vespoyazny would correct me, but she's not moving her head, so I must be correct.
Okay. Yeah, that'd be consistent with what she said this morning, I think. Okay. All right, thank you. Mr. Hug, you're recognized.
John, would you come back up, please? I know you're probably not an expert on Iowa electrical codes, but on the off chance you are familiar with them, I know this kind of muddies the water, probably has no bearing on the topic, but it's in my memory that external residential shutoff has been part of Iowa code for about 10 years.
I'm not sure on that.
Okay. I believe it's been part of Iowa electrical code for a good number of years, whether it's 10 or more, I can't. And there are other instances other than fires where an external shutoff would enhance residents' safety. We don't have any floods, but in a flood that would be beneficial. If you want to be proactive and, you know, we're in the middle of a tornado warning, if you wanted to shut your power off, that would be a proactive measure for a homeowner.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, thank you.
Yeah, just a little bit of context on the timing on that statute that was passed in Lincoln. We were kind of over a barrel on the fact that we had been two code updates out of compliance, and so our reciprocity was being threatened with about 17 other states, that if we didn't pass the most recent version, it would have cost the ability to move electricians in and out of the state, provided the work was available. And so that's where we were testifying as proponents to pass the whole thing. It did get adopted late and amended late to have those carve-outs, and I believe it was specifically for cost-saving measures, but we did testify at the same time that these are life safety measures that you are sacrificing to save $700 on a home build. But that was kind of the backstory.
And the grand scheme of thing, when you're building a $300,000 house, $700 isn't that much.
It isn't, and you probably should ask the home buyer, would you want a safer house and maybe a cheaper light fixture in the entryway, is what the cost difference is there. So.
Thank you, John.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Mr. Rowe, you're recognized.
Hey, John, don't go far.
Okay.
So you mentioned, I have a few questions as well. You mentioned the $700 increase in the cost. Was that for, what did that all include?
So to implement those 5 sections that were carved out, it would be a cost of $700 on a new home.
So all 5?
All 5 total $700.
Total was $700, material and labor all in.
Yep. That's what we got quoted for our, so the state electrical division did ask requests for how much from contractors that would cost. In 2021, when they tried to do it, I think the quotes were coming in around 2,000, so.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
I mean, my concern is the housing affordability. We talk about housing affordability all the time. And Anna, might have a couple of questions for you, but you know, there are groups out there that do a hard analysis on the impact of codes on the cost of housing. And the last report that I read, 23% of the cost of a new home is probably attributed to codes and regulations and licenses and permits and that kind of thing. Would you say that's probably true or not?
Anna Vespoyasny, Planning Department. I don't know what the percentage is with regards to, I've seen some of those same studies. I don't recall what the percentage was that they listed in there. I do know that it's not uncommon for additional charges to be, I guess, incurred when you do adopt to a newer code. I mean, right now we're talking that a starter home is $350,000 to build a starter home. Right. And, you know, back in the day, before you had all these other, you know, minimum code standards, it was a lot less. Now, a lot of those have proven to be very good changes, but it's growing pains, if you will, to go to the next code. So a lot of times some of these amendments come in, not unlike the ones for the National Electrical Code that we're talking about today, just as a, I guess, a compromise, if you will, to try and make that leap without impacting the costs, you know, too much immediately. So.
Okay, I'm sure when the legislature had a committee that studied this and people came and testified, I'm sure they went through a pretty hard analysis to how this would impact the cost of housing at that time, right?
Well, I believe they did because they put it off for basically a year. And I don't know what happened in that year other than the fact that what I read in the floor debate alluded to the fact that there was some conversations between the home builders and the people who had proposed the original bill to come to a compromise. And these 5 carve-outs, if you will, were that compromise to try and basically appease to everybody. And, you know, so the state obviously felt that this was a minimum standard that was safe enough for Nebraska across the board. So we felt comfortable adopting the same thing that the state had proposed.
So that was going to be my next question. How comfortable are you with these 5 carve-outs as it is to safety? I mean, are our houses going to be safe if we adopt these 5 carve-outs?
Absolutely, they're going to be safe.
Okay, that was my point. I think the state would not have passed something that put our homeowners at risk.
No.
So appreciate that. Okay, thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Ms. Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. President. John. Thank you. Are you in support of this ordinance?
I'm in support of adopting the 2023 code minus the carve-outs. We can live in the houses we're used to from 2017, or we can understand that there's a safer house available if we want it and move up to 2023.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Mr. Begley.
Thanks, Mr. President. I guess I want to be clear. Affordable housing is a continued crisis in this country, in the city, the Midwest, the state, everywhere. But I don't want to lose fact of the sight that, and I'm not saying this is being done, but if corners are looking to get cut in the name of safety, and Anna described it, that houses are going to be safe, and I totally believe that. But again, the training and the testimony that John gave here today is advocating for the safety that I don't want to rehash of the things that I talked about for when the firefighters come out, if there's a house fire, if there's kids in the house, there's things that the IBW with their safety training has identified on these things. It's $700, I think John said, for the cost of this. And housing is expensive, but the price of safety is the balance. And I don't want to lose sight of that fact that if we get to a point where we want the carve-outs minus the carve-outs in our code, it isn't because we're against housing affordability. It's because if we choose to do so, we are recognizing the safety measures with it. So I just wanted to make sure that was clear.
Okay.
Thanks, Mr. President.
Thank you. I don't see any further lights. Thank you for your testimony. Next item.
Item 52, an ordinance to approve a people plan delivery agreement with the Omaha Housing Authority.
The public hearing on number 52 is today. Proponents, please.
Hi, Kelly Johnston, Dorsey, Omaha Planning Department. So 15% of our Choice Neighborhood Implementation Grant can be spent on people, programs, and services if in conformance with a people plan that is adopted by HUD. So we've allocated 14% of our overall budget to those people plans and services, and HUD has approved our people plan. OHA is our people plan lead, and what this allows us to do, what this ordinance allows us to do, is to reimburse the providers for the programs and services that have already been approved by HUD. So I'll be here for any questions, and I know OHA is here as well.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Joni Poor, Omaha Housing Authority, 1823 Harney Street. I also have Lauren Leitner, our Intensive Services Manager, who actually oversees the case management program that directly delivers these services that you have before you. Just a little bit to add to what Kelly shared. As you may remember, on the Choice Neighborhood Grants, the city is the lead grantee. The Omaha Housing Authority is the co-applicant and the co-grantee for both the North and the South grants. The city serves as the neighborhood lead, Bryn Shore as the housing lead, and then as Kelly said, we are the people lead. We work in partnership with Canopy South as the principal education partner, where they have primary point and coordination with the Omaha Public Schools. They also hire and employ the education director that works with directly with Omaha Public Schools. And then we also work with the Simple Foundation as the anchor institute. The people goals primarily focus on the residents at Southside Terrace, and in addition to obviously relocation and return with the redevelopment at Southside Terrace, we focus on employment, income, health, children's education. We have case management. Lauren has a coordinator underneath her, as well as 4 case managers that directly work for the Housing Authority. And then we also work with the University of Nebraska Medical Center for a health navigator and a community health worker, Heartland Workforce Solutions for a workforce navigator, the Simple Foundation for a youth navigator, and again, that director of education at Canopy South. So this is a broad and extensive people plan that, again, we propose to HUD when we first apply, and then we work with them to refine that once we received the award. And this has been through a couple of revisions, and we're excited to present it and to continue to implement it. Happy to answer any questions, and of course, Lauren will too. Thank you.
Any other proponents that want to speak today?
No, thank you.
Bet. Any opponents? Public hearing's closed. I don't see any further lights. Thanks for being here. Next item.
Item 53, an ordinance levying a special tax and assessment on real estate within the Benson Business Improvement District number 6875.
Public hearing on number 53 is today. Proponents, please. Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing's closed.
Item 54, an ordinance levying a special tax and assessment on real estate within the Blackstone Business Improvement District number 6877.
Public hearing on number 54 is today. Proponents, please. Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing's closed.
Item 55, an ordinance levying a special tax and assessment on real estate within the Dundee Business Improvement District number 6876.
Public hearing on number 55 is today. Proponents, please. Seeing none, any opponents?
Larry Store, 5015 Lafayette Avenue, Omaha 68132. I don't think I'm exactly within the particular district you're talking about, but I'm opposed to it because I live very close. I drive by through there quite a bit. The only improvements that I see along that stretch from Northwest Radio up through to the radio, Saddle Creek, up towards Benson. I think you're talking about the businesses that are on the street sides all the way up to the roundabout, but maybe further.
This is Dundee, Larry.
And I don't know, I don't see a whole lot of improvement there. But I don't want to pay for improvements that other people haven't paid for. So I'd like you to define what district boundaries there is. Go ahead and laugh.
No, I'm just trying to let
But
you know.
who are you going to charge this to?
I'm just trying to let you know this is
Are
Dundee.
you going to send it to me in the
This is Dundee,
mail?
not the area you're describing, nor do you live there. Any other opponents to number 55? Seeing none, public hearing is closed.
Item 56, an ordinance levying a special tax and assessment on real estate within the Elkhorn Business Improvement District number 6878.
Public hearing on number 56 is today. Proponents, please. Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Item 57, an ordinance levying a special tax and assessment on real estate within the South Omaha Business Improvement District number 6880.
Public hearing on number 57 is today. Proponents, please. Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Item 58, an ordinance to accept the bid from Signal of Omaha to provide security services for Omaha Public Libraries.
Public hearing on number 58 is today. Proponents, please. Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Item 59, an ordinance to amend Section 23-177 of the Omaha Municipal Code by changing the salary for the Applications Analyst. Personnel Board recommends approval.
Public hearing on 59 is today. Proponents, please.
Good afternoon, Claire Anderson Hubbard, Human Resources.
Chelsea Ship, Human Resources, here to answer any questions.
Deb Zander, Human Resources, here to answer any questions you might have on 59 through 62, as they're all dealing with classifications.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other proponents on 59? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Item 60, an ordinance to amend Section 23-177 of the Omaha Municipal Code by changing the title of wastewater monitoring technician to utility monitoring technician. Personnel Board recommends approval.
Public hearing on number 60 is today. We'll note the proponents from the Personnel Department. Any other proponents that want to speak today? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Item 61, an ordinance to amend Section 23-177 of the Omaha Municipal Code by adding the employment classifications entitled Utility Maintenance Scheduler and Coordinator, Senior Utility Field Coordinator, and Utility Field Coordinator. Personnel Board recommends approval.
Public hearing on number 61 is today. Proponents, please. Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Item 62, an ordinance to amend Section 23-177 of the Omaha Municipal Code by adding the employment classifications entitled Utility Heavy Equipment Operator, Utility CCTV Technician, Utility Equipment Operator, Utility Construction Technician, Utility Maintenance Technician, Utility Locator, and Utility Maintenance Worker. Personnel Board recommends approval.
Public hearing on number 62 is today. Proponents, please. Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Item 63, an ordinance to accept and authorize the disbursement from the fiscal year 2024 State Homeland Security Grant to provide law enforcement with enhanced capabilities for preventing acts of terrorism.
Public hearing on number 63 is today. Proponents, please. Seeing none, any opponents?
Harry Store, 5015 Lafayette Avenue, Omaha, 68132. I'm opposed to this because, once again, we're buying into the federal government's money, and their directions will control us. But I'd like to know Is this a warning to us to be ready for terrorism, and by who? Are you going to discuss the major influx of terrorists across the border that the government is not sealing? Are we ready for that? Are we even going to discuss that? I don't hear the state or the city or the council discussing that. But they're going to be here. They're probably already here. Maybe they'll take over our hotels like they did in Colorado. And you're not talking about it. I want to know what kind of terrorism they're talking about. Me, because I have this on my head? I don't think that we need to do this. Tell the federal government to stay out of it, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other opponents to number 63? Seeing none, public hearing is closed.
Item 64, an ordinance to establish a Class A flammable liquids storage district number A-168 located at 10407 State Street.
Public hearing on number 64 is today. Proponents, please. Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Non-action items, items 65 through 77, do not require public hearing or city council consideration at this meeting, but will be placed on a future agenda for public hearing and or vote. The reason for non-action is noted after the item on the agenda, as well as the date the item is expected to appear on agenda for consideration.
Is there a motion to adjourn? Motion and a second to adjourn. Roll call.
Hug. Yes. Johnson. Yes. Melton. Yes. Rowe. Yes. Bagley. Harding. Yes. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0. Meeting is adjourned at 3:21.